first year of high school. For a little bit of background, I only went to this high school for my first year due to bullying, as well as my friend that turned into a stalker. Chelsea was a fairly kind, if not a little odd girl. We got along quite well, but I found it weird how clingy she would get, always following me into bathrooms, requesting to the teachers that we would be paired together if there was a class project, and following me around in general. She even gave me a Valentine's Day card because she saw me as her best friend. She would even, at times, refer to me as her second mum. I was okay with all of this. Having been bullied throughout primary school, I just figured I must have been one of the first people she made friends with. But things got worse after the accident. In August, Australian school year goes January through to December. The school day had ended and Chelsea and I were walking towards our usual bus stop. Now this bus stop was across a main road, but was a good 300 meters away from the traffic lights. As we did every other day of the year, we ran across the main road. Except this time, I blacked out and got hit by a car. I was perfectly fine. A few bruises and a grazed elbow. Chelsea was in hysterics though, crying about how I could have died and how she was glad I was okay. I ended up comforting her whilst the ambulance came to check me over. This all happened on a Friday, so I had the weekend to recover. Monday was when the creepy side of this story began. When I got in, Chelsea was waiting for me at my locker. I greeted her and commented that it looked like she had a rough night. She told me she had trouble sleeping the entire weekend after seeing me get hit by a car. I understood that must have been traumatizing and said something along the lines of, "I'm sorry you had to see that. It must have been awful." She played it off as cool as she was capable of, and then told me she had something for me. She had bought me a present. I told her that was too kind, but accepted it, and thanked her as she looked like she might cry if I didn't. That probably sounds awkward and mildly mean, but I was an awkward 14-year-old with a long history of having no friends, making it hard to react properly to others. This was where things got worse. At recess, Chelsea was going on about the accident and how it looked from her end. I found this interesting because there were details you just don't get when you black out. She then turns to me, pale as a ghost, and says, "I just realized something." "What?" I asked. "If you hadn't blacked, I would have been hit by the car. And if I had been hit by the car, that woman wouldn't have had time to hit the brakes. She would have hit me at full speed, and I could have died." She went silent and stared off into the distance for a while. I agreed it was a scary revelation, and just said, "Well, it is lucky I blacked out then." The rest of the week, Chelsea kept bringing me gifts, either actual store-bought presents or drawings and other things she had made for me. I always thanked her, and after the second day of this, I told her to stop because she really didn't have to do this. After that, the gifts stopped, but that seemed to be what pushed her over the edge. She started following me around more than usual, calling me to find out where I was. She even started abusing the rest of our friendship group when they would have my attention. I tried to be understanding. I tried to help her through what I assumed was a breakdown of sorts. But I drew the line when she attacked my close friend I had from primary school. I wasn't there for this, but Melissa told me that she was walking home from the shops one day when a larger, dark-skinned girl came up to her, screaming at her to keep away from her girlfriend and accused her of being a homewrecker. When Melissa tried to ask what she was on about, Chelsea started to physically assault her, screaming to keep away from me. I knew from the description that it was her. Worried, I contacted Chelsea's mother to let her know what was going on. Unfortunately, her mother more or less had her head up her ass because she said that there was nothing wrong with her little angel. And I must have her confused with someone else. Scared shitless, I decided to confront Chelsea at school. This didn't go in any of the directions I had considered. I thought she would scream, attack, lie, or threaten suicide like she had in the past. But instead, she came clean. The part I remember clearly. She was as calm as Hannibal in the Silence of the Lambs. Me, Chels, why did you beat up my friend? If something is going on, tell me so I can help you. Chelsea. She was getting between us, don't you understand? I love you, and she was just going to break your heart. I should have killed her. But there were too many people around, don't you get it? You saved me. So now I'm going to save you from everyone else. I felt pure fear. My stomach dropped, and I went cold. I told her to keep away from me and my friends, and to never talk to me again. After this, I reported what I knew to a teacher and spoke to my other friends, warning them of what Chelsea had done. A few people told me that I was being harsh on Chelsea, but I was honestly terrified of her and what she was capable of. My mother, however, told me I had done the right thing and told me not to feel guilty about it at all. Letters started arriving in the mail with no stamp, all of them from Chelsea. Some were photos of me out on the weekend, but most of them were love letters with the threat of suicide chucked in. I handed these into the police, even though they said they couldn't do anything at this time as there was no real threat. It was a good idea to keep a paper trail just in case. Just before December, one of our friends stole Chelsea's diary. I scolded them for this. Just because Chelsea was going crazy on us didn't give them the right to steal from her. But in hindsight, I'm glad they did. The diary was full of our names and hearts, poems about me, drawings of me. Anywhere from just me to me dead, or us doing something sexual. And basic thoughts and feelings about how she felt and what she wanted to do. I felt the blood drain from my face when they showed me her last few entries. All of them were her planning to kill me, and how to dispose of the evidence. Some of the details were enough to make me literally throw up. Thankfully, all three of us were huddled in the bathroom. I am not going to go into those details because they honestly still scare me. Like, I have seen and gone through some awful things, but a lot of it pales in comparison to some of the things she wrote. The other girls just wanted to put it back quietly and act like we never saw it. But I told them we were handing this into the coordinator for our year level. This is what they needed to take action. Chelsea was taken in for questioning and was provided with psychiatric help. The next year I changed schools and changed my number. I haven't heard from Chelsea since. I have, however, heard from my old friends, and they have told me that she never got better and started taking it out on them instead. They got away from her and she dropped out of high school in year 11, 2007. So Chelsea, I hope you get the help you really need. Let's not meet again. This happened to me my freshman year in high school and lasted till last year. Some background information. My parents are divorced, and I lived with both of them at different times in my life. I was living with my father, going to a different school district when this started. I was 14 or 15 and started at a new school. I wasn't too worried as I make friends fairly easily. A week into starting, I had made quite a few new friends and was meeting people through them. No, I wasn't by any means popular, and I was what you would call gothic. A friend of mine was talking to this boy I hadn't met before, so she decided to introduce us. We said our hellos, and my friend and I ended the brief conversation to head to the last class of the day. I started seeing this boy nearly everywhere I was at school. I wrote it off as he just wanted a new friend, so I talked to him. His behavior changed as I got to know him better. He was very touchy-feely, always finding an excuse to hug me or brush his hands on my arms or hands. I don't want to be rude, so I just ignore him. He started to become possessive of me and would act passive-aggressive toward anyone I'd be talking to or dating. I decided to confront him when he managed to destroy a relationship I was in, because that was crossing the line. He proceeded to adamantly apologize and say that he was only looking out for my well-being. I told him, well, that's nice of him. I could handle doing that for myself. I didn't hear much from him for a few weeks, until I started getting strange messages from an unknown number. And you guessed it, it was him. I asked how he had gotten my number, why he was sending me pictures of me around town. I didn't appreciate this level of creepy and told him that our friendship was over and that I didn't want to hear from him ever again. The text stopped and I didn't see him around everywhere and felt relieved thinking I had ended a bad situation that could have progressively gotten worse. Unfortunately, the peace didn't last long as I'd see him riding his bike past my house multiple times a day, and even walking up to rocks being thrown at my window. This pissed me off, and I confronted him once again at school. This time he reacted angrily, saying that he loved me and that I had to stop ignoring him. I told him to piss off and leave me alone. The next 2 weeks only got worse as I got more and more texts containing pictures of me going around town with friends, and even a picture of my boyfriend at the time, and myself walking out of a local cafe, and an angry text accusing me of cheating on him, and other obscene insults. I got manila envelopes filled with angry letters and photos of me in my room. he started showing up everywhere I went and coming up to me, trying to hug me. I had had enough and told my dad, providing all the evidence. He didn't take me seriously and said that I was only trying to get attention. I told him that if he didn't believe me, then I wanted to go back and live with my mother. After a few weeks of arguing and a few court dates, I was placed back into my mom's custody the following year. I believed that the horror I had gone through was finally over. But 6 months later, my happiness vanished as I got a text containing a picture of me in a local Walmart with friends. I blocked the number, and my life went back to normal for the next few weeks. It's summer at this point, and my friends and I decided to have a picnic at a lake downtown. Everyone decided we wanted ice cream, so I said I'd stay behind with all of our stuff and wait for them to get back. I was all by myself for a good 5 minutes when he walked right up to me and said that he missed me. I stood up and started to walk towards the ice cream shop, and he grabbed my wrists, preventing me from leaving. I screamed and shoved, trying to get away. He was too strong. So I brought my knee up and hit him in the family jewels and took off running. I called the cops and took pictures of the bruises on my wrists. I never came across him in person again, but over the years I would randomly get messages on social media. But I just blocked him, and eventually he gave up and left me alone. Creepy stalker boy. Let's not meet. So I'm a 20-year-old male, and I flew to India last November to meet a few family members. It was my first time flying on my own to India, and despite what my family would tell me, I wasn't at all worried, since I can speak and understand Hindi, albeit quite badly. Also, I looked like I could pass for an Indian, which I thought would help me blend in. I landed at around 2 a.m. and after landing in Mumbai International Airport, I had to catch a quick airport coach to take me from the international to the domestic airport. Standard procedure, although I found it a bit strange for such a busy airport to have such a system. I managed to make my way onto the coach. Now I know you must be thinking that the coach must be fake, but it wasn't the coach. I managed to get to the domestic airport just fine, and as I was waiting to disembark, I saw some people dressed in airport gear checking people's boarding passes. So I held my pass to show the guy, and as he looked at it, he gave a perplexed look. He scanned my pass again and stated that my flight wasn't due to depart in 4 hours. This is true, but I thought I'd chill at the airport anyway. He said that I'd have to take a taxi and go back to the international airport, as he would not let me go into the domestic unless the departure was less than 2 hours. I obviously wasn't going to pay for a taxi back to the airport, and didn't understand why the airport wouldn't let me in. However, after thinking about all the weird procedures Indian airports have had so far, I had to collect my bags at Mumbai Airport and check them back in at the same place. Disorganized queuing everywhere, getting a damn coach to and from the same airport, and the dim lights at the domestic terminal. I thought this may be another one of its irritating quirks. I agreed with the guy and walked with him to the car park. He was asking me where I was from and what I was doing in India. Just some friendly banter, I thought. But I was too tired and shy to even attempt to speak to him in Hindi. I kept telling him I'm not going for the taxi and that I have no money on me, just to make sure he wasn't trying to scam me. He kept nodding and took me to the taxi he said I should take. Now, from watching Bollywood films, I know how Mumbai taxis look. They're yellow and black and are a distinctive model. This taxi was a normal silver-colored car with not even an ounce of credibility to pass as a taxi in Mumbai. Surrounding the taxi were a bunch of eerie-looking guys, all looking at me with a straight face. Feeling a bit awry, I backed away a bit while they were talking to one another. Thankfully, the guy who had led me to them didn't know I could speak Hindi, and they were saying stuff like, "Eat some sweet goods. We'll have fun with him. You brought a good one. I'll be sure not to let him go." Aghast, I started sweating and shaking. I know people back home have said I act a bit camp, and apparently unintentionally act flirtatious, but I had no idea that a bunch of Indian guys would have any interest in me, apart from maybe getting some money. Visibly shaken, I was completely speechless and had no idea how to get out of the situation. The guy had my boarding pass, and the car door was open. Then I had an idea. I said to the guy in English, "Can I just quickly buy a coffee? I've been parched for so long." He stated that the police at the door of the airport wouldn't let me in no matter how much I tried, and the best thing was to get into the car. I insisted that I'd just try to get in as I was really thirsty, and my voice started croaking. Out of fear originally, but thankfully it could be passed as thirst. His friends told him to give me my boarding pass back and let me try it out. He gave it back and made me promise I'd come back after the coffee. I obviously obliged and gave him a cute smile as I snatched the pass and power walked it to the terminal. Of course, I didn't want to act too alarmed, as they could have easily ran up to me and tackled me. In addition, the police could have been in cohorts with them and refused me access. Thank you, Indian News. So I made my way to the terminal and showed the policeman my boarding pass. He had a look, and I asked him if I was allowed to enter the terminal just to make sure. He said, "Of course, your flight departs from here," and directed me to the departures lounge. I've never felt so thankful in my life. I breathed a sigh of relief as I hightailed it up the escalator and past the security check to make sure the gang wouldn't be let in. It was about 4 a.m. at this point, and all I could think of was what would have happened if I couldn't understand Hindi and went into the taxi. To this day, I shudder at the thought. My only regret is not informing the police when I was let in. I think nerves did get the better of me, and I felt distrust towards everyone. Plus, Indian police officers wouldn't have done much to help the situation. Probably would have told me to keep calm and carry on. But yeah, bunch of gang rapists at Mumbai airport. Please, let's not meet.